Hey everyone, welcome. Today we're going to demystify one of the biggest game changers in React's history, hooks. We'll break down exactly how they transformed component writing, making our code so much cleaner and way more powerful. All right, let's get into it.
So let's be real. If you've ever worked with an older React codebase, this question probably hits home, right? The constant battle with the this keyword in classes, and just the mental gymnastics you had to do to share logic, it was a common headache for sure.
You know, to really get why hooks are such a big deal, we got to take a quick trip back in time to see how things used to be. Before 2018, the React world was pretty much split in two.
So picture this. On one side, you had your class components. These were the heavy lifters. If you needed to manage state or use lifecycle methods like component-did-mount to go fetch data, you had to use a class. And on the other side, you had functional components. They were simple, they were stateless, and they were mostly just for rendering UI.
Okay, but what happened when you needed to share logic between components? Well, you ended up with these really complex patterns like higher-order components and render props, and while they worked, they often led to this nightmare called wrapper hell, just components nested inside more components. It made the code incredibly hard to follow.
So yeah, things were getting complicated. And thankfully, the React team saw this and came up with an elegant solution that pretty much changed everything.
And that solution, of course, is hooks. Simply put, hooks are these special functions that let you hook into React features like state and lifecycle methods, but from right inside your functional components. For the very first time, a simple function could be just as powerful as a big old class.
But, like with any great power, there are a couple of really important rules you've got to follow. And trust me, getting these right is absolutely crucial for hooks to work their magic.
All right, here they are, the two golden rules. First, you only call hooks at the very top level of your function. No calling them inside loops, conditions, or nested functions. Second, you only call hooks from a React functional component or from another custom hook. And the reason is simple. React relies on the order that hooks are called to know which state belongs to which useState call. These rules guarantee that the order is identical on every single render, which is what keeps your state predictable and bug-free.
Okay, rules covered. Let's get our hands dirty and look at the two hooks you're going to be using pretty much every single day, useState and uEffect.
useState is your bread and butter for adding state. You call it, and it gives you back two things in an array, the current state value itself and a special function that lets you update that value. It's that simple. Check out this classic counter example. We call useState with a starting value of 0. It hands us back count, which is our current value, and setCount, the function to change it. And just like that, one line gets a state management that's clean, clear, and completely free of the this keyword.
All right, next up, the powerhouse, uEffect. This hook is for side effects. Think of that as anything your component does that isn't directly related to rendering, like fetching API data, setting up subscriptions, or changing the DOM. It basically takes the place of component did mount, component did update, and component will unmount all rolled into one.
Now, look closely at this timer example. See that empty array at the end? That's the dependency array, and it's the secret sauce here. An empty array tells React, hey, just run this effect one time when the component first shows up on the screen. And that function we return, that's the cleanup crew. It runs automatically when the component unmounts, clearing the interval and preventing memory leaks. It's a complete lifecycle in one tidy package.
And this is where things get really cool. This is the true magic of hooks. Once you get the basics, you can start creating your own to pull out and reuse logic anywhere you want.
So take a look at this. It's a custom hook we've created called useWindowWidth. Inside this one function, it's using useState to keep track of the width and useEffect to handle the window resize listener. All the logic needed to track the browser's width is neatly packaged right here.
And this is the beautiful payoff. All that complex state and effect logic we just saw, any component that needs the window width can now get it with this single, clean, descriptive line of code. It's like building your own superpowers for your components.
All right, so let's zoom out a bit. Why does all this matter? What's the big takeaway here?
Well, for starters, your code just gets way simpler and easier to read. Reusing logic is no longer some big architectural puzzle. It's as easy as just writing a function. You can finally say goodbye to all those headaches with binding this, and you get to group related code together instead of splitting it across a bunch of different lifecycle methods.
When you boil it all down, hooks leveled the playing field.
They give us all the power of classes, but with the simplicity and elegance of functions. This is just fundamentally how we write modern, readable, and reusable React applications today.
And there you have it. That's our tour of React hooks. They aren't just a new feature, they're a whole new way to think about building components. So the only question left is, with these awesome new tools at your fingertips, what are you going to build next?